This is Jacques-Louis David's The Death of Marat. Jean-Paul Marat, the publisher and popular voice of the revolution, lies in his bathtub, lifeless, grasping pen and paper. He is draped at one side of the tub with one arm limp over the edge. This modern for the time painting strays away from biblical or religious subject matter and shows an example of a significant aspect of France's history in the making. Marat was murdered in his tub and became a symbol of the revolutionary cause. Jacques-Louis David, a neoclassical painter in France, was said to be heavily inspired by Renaissance and classical artists. He chose to include some techniques from previous artistic eras to show the importance of this event. He is heavily influenced by depictions of Christ for this piece, and this was controversial for the time in the way that he would compare a common radical man to Christ, inspired by Caravaggio's dramatic depiction of religious matters. There is a clear inspiration of chiaroscuro, as the darkest values run very dramatically dark. There is also a sort of made-up lighting choice that rains down on the body of Marat from the upper right corner of the piece. Marat looks almost like he is a holy figure because of this glowing light. There is careful attention to detail when it comes to the anatomy of Marat's body, which was an important aspect of classical paintings, especially in the 17th century Italy, where the body was to be celebrated with accuracy. Marat's arm hangs over the tub edge. The pose chosen is natural and indicates the action of the assassination. It was favored by classical artists to have the body in natural poses. The way his face stays peaceful and rested with no violent expression of pain is very Christ-like, which makes the point that Marat is a martyr. Most of the weight of this piece is on the left side of the canvas, which allows for eye movement across Marat's body horizontally, and if one is looking upward at the painting, the lighting seems to move downward towards the viewer as well. During this time in history, there was rejection of the Rococo movement, which favored the elite pastel colors and romantic subject matter. So due to the revolutionary movement and Jacques-Louis David's involvement as a more radical Montagnard, he rebelled by reclaiming these classical techniques that he could use to honor the revolutionary struggle. This evidently tragic scene depicts the falling of a crucial entity of the French Revolution, Jean-Paul Marat. Marat was an active participant in the democratic revolution in France in the 18th century. He served as a publisher, bringing supportive updates through his newspaper entitled L'Ami du Peuple, or the Friend of the People. Like any issue, there were many existing parts of the spectrum when it came to the hows and whats of revolution. Marat proved himself more popular amongst a more radicalized side of the revolution, comprised of lower-class people and workers, the Montagnards, while remaining unpopular with the Girondins, another politically motivated group of young people from the upper middle class background, often coming from a more book-based approach. The two groups often clashed over how France would be governed after the war. The Montagnards hoping for a more equitable future for workers and disadvantaged, the Girondins hoping for a more democratic representation. Marat's loyalty to the Montagnards caused controversy. Many Girondins believed that the Montagnards would ruin the future of France. Ultimately, action was taken by Girondin, Charlotte Corday of Caen, France. She made the decision to assassinate Marat after being outraged by mass murders of prisoners committed by the state after radicals threatened an uprising within the prisons. She believed Marat represented a chaotic and pointless cause. She carefully premeditated the execution. She contacted him for a talk regarding his influence through his publications and offered the names of combative Girondin officers to get closer to him. Then, on July 13, 1793, Corday was allowed into Marat's home and stabbed Marat in the chest. while he edited his paper in his bathtub. Marat was martyred as a symbol of the revolution and the people. Jacques-Louis David was heavily involved in the French Revolution himself. He valued the reconstruction of the state on the more radical side, aligning himself with the Montagnard group of the Jacobin rebels. When Marat's death was announced, he was commissioned by the people to help remind the public of Marat's contributions and to make a piece that would symbolize the ongoing efforts. So, within just a few months, the infamous image was made. Marat was editing papers when he died, but as a piece of propaganda, Jacques-Louis David instead wrote a fictional statement on the piece of paper depicted in Marat's hand, from his assassin Charlotte Corday, which translated from French saying, "It is enough that I am very unhappy to be entitled to your benevolence." Within just a year from creating the Death of Marat, Jacques-Louis David would be persecuted as the revolution turned around. He would barely escape death and be imprisoned on multiple occasions for his efforts. This piece of the revolution miraculously survived through many ups and downs. It would be recreated by Jacques-Louis David's peers and associates to inspire and honor the efforts in 18th century France.